In the silence of the forest, there is a voice that never stops speaking. Beneath our feet lies a hidden world, a living network older than civilization itself. A world where trees whisper through roots, trade secrets through fungi, and remember the past like an ancient mind. For centuries, we thought they were silent, motionless, unaware. But new science has uncovered something extraordinary. The forest is alive with communication, emotion, and cooperation. This is not a myth, nor a metaphor. It's the wood, wide web, nature's invisible internet, connecting every leaf, every branch, every breath we take. Tonight we will enter that world. We will listen to the voices of trees and discover how the forest thinks, feels, and remembers. Welcome to the Wonder Lab. This is the secret language of trees. Imagine standing in a forest. The air is still. The light filters through green layers, a cathedral of leaves above. But beneath your feet, something extraordinary is happening. An unseen civilization is at work. Beneath the roots of every tree lies a network so vast. It stretches across entire forests, billions of tiny fungal threads weaving through the soil, connecting tree to tree like cables in an underground internet. Scientists call it mycorrhiza, a symbiotic partnership between fungi and roots. The fungus gathers water and minerals from deep underground. In return, the tree shares sugar, the energy of sunlight, transformed into life. But this network isn't just about survival. It's a system of communication. When one tree is attacked by insects, it sends chemical distress signals through the fungal web, a warning that can reach its neighbors within hours. Nearby trees respond, boosting their own defenses, releasing toxins that make their leaves bitter, or sending out scents to attract predators of the pests. It's not competition, it's cooperation. The forest moves as one, like a single breathing organism. In the soil's darkness, life isn't isolated, it's connected. It's alive with purpose, and the more scientists dig, the more they realize this hidden network may be the mind of the forest itself. Every forest hides a secret, an invisible architecture of connection. Beneath the moss, the roots, and the fallen leaves lies a world of unimaginable scale, a network more complex than human cities, older than history, and alive in every sense of the word. Scientists once believed trees were silent competitors, each fighting for light, water, and space. But now we know that this is only half the truth. In the late 1990s, Canadian ecologist Suzanne Simard made a discovery that changed biology forever. In her forest experiments, she traced carbon isotopes from one tree to another and found something astonishing. Trees were sharing resources, even across species. The birch fed the fir in the shade. The fir returned the favor when the birch lost its leaves. A silent economy of energy pulsed beneath the soil, a barter system of life. The forest was not a collection of individuals. It was a collective intelligence. Mycorrhizal fungi, the microscopic threads connecting roots, act as both messengers and mediators. They transmit electrical impulses, carry chemical cues, and even allow one tree to detect the well-being of another. Some scientists now call it the wood wide web, because it behaves much like our digital one, with nodes, connections, signals, and even bandwidth. But this web doesn't just share data, it shares life. When a mother tree senses its seedlings in distress, it can send extra carbon through the network. When a neighboring tree is dying, it may send a final surge of nutrients, a last gift before it withers into the soil. This is communication born not of language, but of life itself. Fungal threads, thinner than a human hair, stretch for kilometers, carrying messages that move slower than our speech, but with purpose beyond our understanding. Through these connections, the forest balances itself, directing growth where it's needed, warning of danger, and maintaining harmony between the young and the ancient. Scientists have measured electrical signals traveling through these mycorrhizal highways, faint pulses echoing through soil like a heartbeat. Some even speculate that these signals resemble primitive forms of thought, patterns of information storage, reaction, and memory. Could it be that the forest itself is a thinking entity, a consciousness distributed through millions of roots and fungal filaments? If so, then perhaps what we walk upon isn't just soil. It's a living neural network. It's a brain made of wood and earth. Each root is a neuron, each tree a thought. And together they dream the dream of the forest, a living intelligence that breathes through time. Our modern internet is barely 3 decades old. The Wood Wide Web has existed for more than 450 million years, the original Internet of life. When humans built servers and cables, we were unknowingly copying something that nature perfected long before us. A network that runs on cooperation, not competition. The forest doesn't hoard data. It shares it. It doesn't seek power. It seeks balance. In this hidden web, every death becomes nourishment. Every signal becomes renewal. And every silence holds meaning. In learning about trees, we might be learning about ourselves and what connection truly means. Memory is not exclusive to minds like ours. Beneath the green canopy, time is stored differently. The forest remembers, but not in words or pictures, but in growth rings, in chemistry, and in the quiet wisdom of roots. Every ring of a tree's trunk is a story, a record of sunlight and rain, of fire and frost. In its spirals, the tree carries a biological diary, the droughts it survived, the storms it endured, the years of abundance and the seasons of pain. Scientists have learned to read these memories like archives. A thin ring tells of scarcity, a thick one of plenty. But that is only the surface memory, the kind written in wood. There's another kind, far more mysterious, living memory. When a forest burns, some trees that survive retain traces of that trauma. Years later, their seedlings grow with altered chemistry, tougher bark, higher resin, quicker defenses, as if they inherited the memory of fire itself. Researchers in Germany discovered that when a tree is wounded, it changes its gene expression within minutes, not only healing itself, but recording the event in its cellular pathways. The next time danger comes, the tree reacts faster, stronger, wiser. It remembers. Even seasons are memories. Trees know when to sleep and when to wake, a rhythm guided by daylight and temperature, but also by something deeper, a memory of cycles stored in proteins and cells. When spring arrives too early, some trees hesitate, recalling a past frost that once killed their buds. The forest waits. Cautious, intelligent, communication becomes remembrance. Through the wood wide web, older trees pass biochemical cues to younger ones. A mother beech that has survived a harsh winter sends hormonal signals underground, adjusting the timing of her offspring's bud burst. The forest teaches its children. When one tree falls, its decay releases a slow message. Nutrients, yes, but also molecular whispers that inform surrounding life of what once was. The soil itself becomes an archive, storing not only the dead, but the knowledge of how they lived. Some scientists now refer to this phenomenon as ecological memory, the forest's capacity to remember disturbance and adapt over generations. And yet, beyond science, there's poetry here, the sense that every leaf we step on is a page from a living book, every scent of pine a sentence written in air. To walk through a forest is to walk through time itself. Our species measures memory in years and data. The forest measures it in centuries, in patience, in silence, in renewal. Perhaps the trees are not just living things, they are living histories. And in their quiet remembrance, they hold lessons about resilience that humanity has yet to learn. So next time you stand beneath a towering cedar or an ancient oak, remember this: you are surrounded by minds older than civilization, by memories deeper than our myths. The forest does not forget. It simply waits for those who know how to listen. Can a being without a brain feel? For centuries, this question was dismissed as fantasy, a poetic illusion. But now science is beginning to blur the lines between instinct and emotion, between reaction and awareness. The forest, it seems, might not only think, it might feel. In laboratories around the world, biologists have found that plants respond to touch, sound, pain, and even intention not as machines, but as organisms with sensitivity far beyond what we imagined. When a caterpillar begins chewing on a leaf, the plant releases a chemical scream, volatile compounds that warn neighboring plants of danger. Within minutes, those nearby plants alter their chemistry, producing toxins that make them harder to eat. This is empathy written in chlorophyll. When roots are exposed to drought, messages travel upward through hydraulic pulses, the plant's version of a nervous system. The leaves above begin to close their pores, conserving water, preparing for hardship before the first drop of moisture disappears. Monica Galliano, an Australian biologist, conducted one of the most mind-bending experiments in plant behavior. She used the Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant that folds its leaves when touched. She dropped it repeatedly from a short height, not enough to harm it, but enough to startle it. At first, the plant folded up in fear every time, but after several trials, it stopped reacting. It had learned that the fall was harmless. Weeks later, when exposed to the same stimulus, the plant still remembered. It didn't close its leaves. This was learning and memory without a brain. Galliano called it plant cognition. Her work was controversial and yet impossible to ignore. Similar studies have found that plants exposed to soothing vibrations grow faster. Some even seem to hear the buzz of pollinators, increasing nectar production when bees are near. Others respond to the frequency of human voices. It's as though the forest, in its stillness, is constantly listening. To feel, perhaps, doesn't require nerves, only response with meaning. A tree struck by lightning may lose half its canopy, yet, through its roots, it calls out to its neighbors, triggering an invisible rally of nutrients and support. The forest gathers around its wounded. When drought strikes, trees collectively reduce water usage, like a community rationing in crisis. This isn't random. It's coordination, compassion, survival, born of unity. Some indigenous cultures have always known this. They speak of tree spirits, the breath of the forest, and the whispering roots. Modern science is finally catching up, translating ancient wisdom into biology. Because perhaps emotion isn't human. It's universal. When you stand beside a tree, you're not beside silence. The tree is sensing you. The warmth of your body, the vibrations of your movement, the carbon in your breath. It doesn't judge, but it recognizes. It reacts, it feels, and maybe in ways we can't yet measure, it knows that we too are part of the forest, branches of the same ancient design. The forest breathes with us, not against us. When the last light fades between the trunks and the earth hums beneath your feet, remember, what you feel is being felt back. In the quiet exchange between human and tree lies a truth older than language. Emotion is the heartbeat of life. Intelligence is not confined to the skull. We tend to imagine it as neurons firing in a brain, a spark of thought encased in bone. But what if nature designed another kind of mind? one that stretches across kilometers, grows in silence, and thinks without moving. In the forest, every decision is slow, yet astonishingly wise. A seed falls into shadow, far from sunlight. It should die. But instead, it bends its stem, sensing faint gradients of light, searching for the smallest opening in the canopy. It grows toward possibility. That's not instinct. That's problem-solving. Biologists call this tropism. The ability to sense and react to environmental cues. But deeper studies reveal something more. Plants weigh options. When a vine encounters two supports, it doesn't just grow randomly, it tests them. It sends exploratory tendrils, measuring vibration, stability, and texture. Then, like a mind choosing a path, it commits to the better one. These are not thoughts in our sense, but they are decisions guided by information, memory, and strategy. In forests, this intelligence becomes communal. When drought strikes, the mycorrhizal network redistributes resources, sending water and nutrients to where they're needed most. Some trees temporarily slow their own growth to keep the collective alive. Selflessness. In the language of biology, trees also budget their energy. A maple can detect which branches are shaded and divert sap flow toward the sunlit side, maximizing return with mathematical precision. It behaves like an economist, an engineer, and a strategist all at once. Researchers in Israel once exposed roots to multiple underground channels of water, some rich, some poor. The roots didn't wander aimlessly. They focused their growth toward the richest channel, analyzing gradients, adjusting course, adapting in real time. When the experimenters blocked the roots rerouted. They solved the maze, a mind that doesn't think fast, but thinks deep. Electrical signals, similar to nerve impulses, move through plant tissue. When a leaf is cut, a surge of bioelectric activity spreads through the plant, alerting distant regions to respond. Some scientists now describe this as a distributed nervous system where each cell can sense and compute. And together they form an organism-wide brain. This intelligence is ancient, far older than ours. The forest doesn't rush toward answers. It waits, it listens. It calculates across seasons and centuries. While we measure time in moments, the trees measure it in outcomes. They think in the language of survival, patience and balance. Perhaps the true genius of trees is not in their logic, but in their humility. They don't dominate their environment. They cooperate with it. Their algorithms are written in chemistry, their calculations drawn in sunlight. They recycle everything, waste nothing, and plan for futures they'll never see. When a forest thrives, it's not because one tree outcompetes another. It's because the system as a whole achieves harmony. Intelligence, then, might not be what we think. It might not sit inside a head or depend on a heartbeat. It might simply be the capacity to adapt beautifully. Every rustling leaf, every bending root, every burst of spring growth is an act of calculation, a quiet answer to an ever-changing question. How do we keep life alive? The trees have been solving that question for over 400 million years. Maybe the forest has been thinking all along. We just weren't listening. In the forest, no tree stands alone. From the outside, it may look like a random collection of trunks, each rising separately toward the light. But beneath the surface, they are bound together, not just by roots, but by relationships. The forest is a social world, ancient, complex, and alive with cooperation. Kinship and quiet conflict deep in the soil. Beneath layers of earth and decay lies the mycorrhizal web, the great connector of life. Through it, trees don't just trade resources, they form alliances. Studies show that mother trees, the largest, oldest individuals in a forest, act as hubs of connection. Their roots extend far, linking with hundreds of smaller trees, especially their offspring. When a seedling is shaded and starving, the mother sends carbon through the network, feeding it with sugars drawn from her own photosynthesis. She recognizes her kin. Researchers have found that mother trees favor their own seedlings over strangers, sending more resources, protecting them from stress, even changing root patterns to give them space to grow. It is family, written in chemistry. In British Columbia's old-growth forests, a single mother tree may connect to 300 other trees, a biological city pulsing with shared life. When she is cut down, her network collapses, leaving her children isolated, vulnerable, and silent. The forest grieves in its own way, but the forest isn't only kindness. It has politics, rivalries, and strategy. Some species compete ruthlessly for dominance. Black walnuts, for instance, release juglone, a toxin that stunts the growth of plants around them, a chemical form of territory defense. In the tropics, acacia trees host armies of ants in exchange for protection. The ants attack intruders, pruning competing plants, defending their home with militant precision. In return, the tree feeds them with nectar and shelter. Symbiosis becomes alliance. Even within species, trees form friendships. When two pines grow side by side for decades, their roots may fuse, allowing nutrients and water to flow between them. If one is cut, the other keeps it alive through the shared root, like a forest heartbeat. Continuing in two bodies, scientists have found stumps of trees, long dead above ground but still alive, underground, kept breathing by their neighbors for centuries. What kind of intelligence chooses to keep the fallen alive? The forest's social network mirrors our own societies in strange ways. It has communities, communication lines, and even conflict resolution. When too many trees crowd an area, the canopy adjusts. Some trees slow their growth so the younger ones can catch light. When disease strikes, the web transmits warnings, prompting biochemical defenses across entire ecosystems. The forest is not just alive, it is aware of itself. Imagine if our civilization behaved the same way, if we shared our excess, warned of danger, and protected our weakest the way a forest does. Our world would be richer, more stable, more alive. The forest teaches that survival is not a race. It's a relationship. In every drop of sap, in every pulse of fungal thread, there is cooperation, the same force that built coral reefs, beehives, and human empathy. The more we study trees, the clearer it becomes they are not resources to be harvested. They are relatives to be understood. The forest's social network is a mirror, showing us what connection truly means. Perhaps when we learn to see trees not as wood, but as wisdom, humanity will finally remember that we too belong to a greater web of life. Every breath we take is borrowed from a tree. In the grand exchange of life, forests are the lungs of earth, ancient alchemists turning sunlight into air, chaos into balance, silence into survival. Long before humans took their first breath, the trees were already exhaling. They built our sky, carved our seasons, and tuned the rhythm of the planet itself. Every forest is a living machine, engineered by evolution, powered by light. Soft, ambient tone, low wind moving through leaves. The process is called photosynthesis. But to call it merely chemistry is like calling music vibration. Through each leaf, light is captured and transformed. Carbon dioxide is drawn from the air, combined with water from the soil, and transmuted into sugar, the very foundation of life. In return, the tree releases oxygen, invisible, essential, a quiet breath that fills the lungs of every creature that has ever lived. Every year, Earth's forests absorb more than 2 billion tons of carbon, an invisible act of generosity that stabilizes the planet's climate. The Amazon alone, often called the lungs of the Earth, releases 20% of the world's oxygen, a single biome keeping the atmosphere in balance. Yet the forest doesn't simply give us air. It creates weather. Every tree acts as a living fountain. Through millions of microscopic pores, it exhales water vapor, a process called transpiration. In the Amazon rainforest, this vapor rises to form clouds that drift across continents, carrying rain to distant lands. Without trees, rainfall collapses. Without rainfall, rivers die. Without rivers, civilizations vanish. The forest is not just a landscape, it's a climate engine. Scientists have discovered that trees even emit microscopic particles that help form clouds. These aerosols reflect sunlight, cooling the planet, nature's own thermostat. When vast tracts of forest are destroyed, those natural coolants vanish, and the earth warms. Every tree cut is not just a loss of wood, it's a loss of balance. Low, cinematic hum, transition to deep space tone. Satellites orbiting Earth have detected something remarkable, a subtle oscillation in the planet's atmosphere, a rhythmic breathing caused by global photosynthesis. Every morning as sunlight sweeps across the continents, forests begin to exhale oxygen and absorb carbon. Every night they rest, and the cycle reverses. The entire Earth, in its own way, breathes in sync with the forests. Scientists call this pattern the Earth's heartbeat. Soft pause. Faint pulse-like sound fades in, matching narration rhythm. It is slow. It is constant. It is older than humanity, and we unknowingly are part of it. Every exhale we release returns to the forest. Every inhale we take is a gift returned to us. We are one half of a planetary conversation, a dialogue between lungs and leaves, between carbon and light. But there is a warning in this harmony. As deforestation accelerates, this rhythm falters. The Amazon, once a carbon sink, now emits more carbon than it absorbs. Forests that once cooled the earth now begin to heat it. The great cycle of air is breaking. Yet, hope remains. When damaged forests are restored, when new trees are planted and old ones are protected, the heartbeat returns. Slow, steady, forgiving. The forest doesn't seek revenge. It seeks balance, and balance is life. Every tree planted, every patch of forest saved, is a breath returned to the world. When you stand beneath a tree and feel the wind stir through its leaves, you are standing inside the earth's breath. Every inhale, every exhale is a quiet reminder that we are not separate from nature. We are nature breathing itself. The forest breathes. The earth breathes. And through them, so do we. In the forest, silence is an illusion. To our ears, it may seem still. But to the hidden senses of nature, the forest is alive with messages. A pulse of information passing invisibly between species. Every sound, every scent, every vibration in the soil carries meaning, what we call silence. The forest calls conversation. Let's begin with a single leaf. When a caterpillar begins to chew its edges, the tree responds instantly, releasing chemicals that warn its neighbors of the attack. Within minutes, nearby trees shift their chemistry, flooding their leaves with bitter tannins. Some even release airborne scents, invisible distress calls that drift through the air, summoning insects that feed on the caterpillars, a cry for help, answered not by words, but by chemistry. This is allelopathy, the art of chemical communication in plants, and it is not limited to danger. Some trees release hormones when they blossom, signaling to pollinators that the feast has begun. Bees detect these scents like coded messages in the air, guiding them from flower to flower, spreading life with every landing. Soft transition, sound of buzzing fading into a heartbeat like drum. Beneath the soil, the conversation deepens. Fungal threads connect roots from different species, oak, pine, birch, all linked through the mycorrhizal network. Scientists call this the Wood Wide Web. Through it, nutrients are exchanged, warnings are sent, and favors are repaid. A shaded sapling may receive extra sugars from an older tree. A dying parent tree may pass its remaining resources to its offspring through the fungal threads, a final act of care. It is a system not built on dominance, but on reciprocity, deep resonant music, mysterious and slow. But the forest's language extends beyond the green. Insects, too, are part of this network. Ants plant fungi inside hollowed bark, farming them for food. Termites construct mounds that regulate temperature using the same principles as the forest's airflow. Birds follow the migration of insects, and mammals follow the birds. The signals ripple outward, each species decoding its own message, each one unknowingly keeping the ecosystem alive. Pause, sound of a distant wolf call. Echo fading into wind. Even predators play a role in the forest dialogue. Wolves shape the growth of trees not by planting them, but by controlling deer populations. In Yellowstone National Park, when wolves were reintroduced, deer began avoiding open riverbanks, the very places they used to overgraze. Within years, saplings grew tall again. Birds returned, beavers rebuilt their dams. The rivers themselves changed course, all because of the voice of the wolf. The message was clear, balance restored. Soft orchestral strings rising. The more scientists study this hidden web of life, the clearer the pattern becomes. The forest is not a collection of separate organisms. It is a living system of interdependence. Trees, fungi, animals, even bacteria. Each one speaks a language the others can understand, not through sound, but through rhythm, chemistry, and energy. When one species falls silent, the others feel the absence. In this living orchestra, everything has a part. The bee that pollinates, the fungus that feeds, the wind that carries seeds, the rain that whispers to roots. And humanity, though we often forget, is part of that same song. When we walk through a forest, we enter a conversation that has been going on for hundreds of millions of years. The scent of pine in the air, the echo of a woodpecker in the distance, they are messages in an ancient language, but we have grown deaf to it. Somewhere in our evolution, we began to see nature as other. The trees became resources. The animals became commodities. The forest became background noise. But the truth is, it was never speaking to us in words. It was always speaking in connection. Yet not all is lost. Around the world, scientists are learning to listen again. Devices record the ultrasonic vibrations of plants, tiny clicks emitted when they are stressed or thirsty. Others map the fungal networks, revealing vast cities beneath our feet. Some researchers even translate electrical impulses within trees into sound, letting us hear the rhythm of a forest thinking. What once was myth is becoming measurable. The forest speaks, not just through rustling leaves or falling rain, but through the pulse of life itself. Every living being is both messenger and listener. Every signal, a reminder that to survive, nature must stay connected. If you listen long enough, you begin to understand the forest isn't silent. It's waiting for us to remember how to hear it. The forest has seen everything. It has witnessed the birth of mountains and the death of rivers. It has survived ice ages, fires, storms, and the rise and fall of civilizations. To the human eye, it may seem unchanging, but beneath its calm, the forest is a living archive, storing the memories of time itself. When a tree survives a drought, it doesn't just endure it, it remembers it. Deep within its rings, chemical markers are left behind, scars of stress, signals of resilience. Years later, When drought returns, the same tree responds faster, closing its pores to conserve water, rerouting nutrients to essential roots. The memory of survival has become a reflex. Scientists call this epigenetic memory, the ability of an organism to record its experiences, not in its DNA sequence, but in how that DNA is expressed. The lessons of a single lifetime can be passed down to the next. In forests where wildfires are common, trees have evolved similar wisdom. Pine cones that open only after fire, bark that thickens generation after generation. Even root systems that wait underground for decades, dormant, patient, until the flames pass and life begins anew. The forest remembers fire not as tragedy, but as renewal. Sound of gentle crackling fire fades into silence. In 2018, scientists studying old-growth beech forests in Germany made a discovery that changed everything. They found that trees could recognize drought patterns from previous decades. When dry conditions returned, they adjusted their water use preemptively, as if they had learned. The researchers wrote, "Trees have a kind of memory that exists outside the human mind." This idea challenges how we define intelligence. If memory is simply the ability to store information and respond to it, then forests too are intelligent. Their intelligence is slow, patient, and collective. It exists not in neurons but in roots, not in words but in the chemistry of survival. When a storm rips through a forest, fallen trees may seem like victims. But in truth, they are the storytellers. Their decomposition releases nutrients, the wisdom of their lifetime, back into the soil, to be absorbed by the next generation. Even in death they teach. Beneath the soil, fungal networks act as the forest's long-term memory banks. These vast webs store not only nutrients, but information, chemical traces of past conditions that guide new growth. A seedling growing near the remnants of an old network can inherit not just minerals, but history. The soil remembers. Humans, too, have memories of the forest. Deep in our biology, the rhythm of wind, the smell of rain on soil, the hush of leaves in the dark, these are the sounds that shaped our species long before we built cities. Our nervous system still calm when surrounded by green. Our hearts slow when we hear running water. Somewhere deep inside we remember what it means to belong here. But in the modern world, that memory is fading. Forests vanish, and with them vanish the lessons they hold. The ancient intelligence that once kept our planet balanced, yet hope is not lost. Across continents, new forests are being planted. Old ones are being protected. Researchers are learning to decode the language of roots and rings, to listen, at last, to the memories Earth has kept for us. We are beginning to remember again. The forest remembers every storm, every fire, every life that fell into its soil. And if you stand among its trees, truly still, truly listening, you may feel it, a quiet presence beneath your feet. A memory older than words. Soft whisper, voice lowers to near silence. The forest does not forget. It waits. It heals. It remembers. For all of us. There is a moment deep in the forest when everything becomes still. No wind. No bird song. Just the quiet heartbeat of the earth beneath your feet. In that silence, something ancient awakens, not outside you, but within. A memory, older than civilization, older than language. A knowing that once, long ago, we were part of this living web, not its masters, not its observers, but its children. Long before our cities lit the night, before our hands shaped machines and monuments, the forest shaped us. We learned rhythm from the seasons. We learned patience from the trees. We learned balance from the dance of predator and prey. But somewhere along the way, we forgot. We built walls, roads, and towers. We separated ourselves from nature, believing that to control it was to evolve. Yet the air we breathe, the food we eat, the rain that falls, all still come from the same living systems we turned away from. We are not outside the forest. We are a thought within it. Scientists now call the Earth's systems the Gaia hypothesis. The idea that the planet behaves like a single, self-regulating organism, forests, oceans, and atmosphere all work together, maintaining conditions for life as if they were organs of a vast body. When one weakens, the others compensate. When one heals, balance returns. The Earth thinks not through neurons, but through balance. Modern science is rediscovering what ancient cultures always knew, that life is not a collection of separate parts, but a living unity the Druids called trees, keepers of wisdom. The indigenous tribes of the Amazon call the forest our mother. The Japanese practice Shinrin-yoku, Horotukam, forest bathing, a ritual of walking among trees to cleanse the mind. Even today, medical research shows that time spent in forests lowers blood pressure, strengthens immunity, and heals the human heart. Nature does not just surround us, it restores us. Deep ambient swell, emotional crescendo begins. The more we understand the language of the forest, the more we realize it is not speaking to us. It is speaking through us. Every heartbeat, every breath, every cell in our body carries the same carbon once carried by ancient trees. The atoms in our bones were once part of leaves that fell centuries ago. The oxygen in our lungs was exhaled by forests half a world away. We are not visitors here. We are the forest, temporarily remembering itself in human form. When a tree dies, it gives its nutrients to the soil. When we die, we too return to the earth, feeding the next generation, joining the endless cycle of life. In that way, the forest is eternal, not because its trees live forever, but because its memory never stops breathing. What if the forest has always been trying to teach us one thing, that survival is not about competition, but connection, that real intelligence lies not in isolation, but in harmony, and that every act of kindness, every moment of balance, every breath we share with the planet is a form of remembering who we are. The forest does not ask for worship. It asks for recognition. It asks us to look up from our screens, to step outside our walls, to touch the living earth again, to feel the pulse that has been beating beneath our feet since the beginning of time, to remember that we were never separate. One day, humanity may finally understand what the trees have known all along, that to live is to give, to breathe is to connect, and to grow is to remember. Because the forest has no ego. It only has rhythm, and that rhythm is the soul of life itself. Soft closing whisper. The forest doesn't belong to us. We belong to the forest. The story of the forest is not over. It continues in every seed that breaks the soil, in every breath that fills our lungs, in every silent rhythm beneath our feet. The forest does not exist in the past tense. It is the living present and the future waiting to grow. Long before we spoke in words, the earth spoke in roots. Long before we learned to write history, the trees were already recording time in rings of memory. Every leaf that falls, every droplet that lands, every gust of wind, each is a syllable in the story of life, a story still unfolding. We once believed the forest was something we could own, measure, and cut into pieces. But the truth is, the forest owns us. It gives us the air we breathe, the food we eat, the rain that nourishes our fields. Even the language we speak, built on rhythm, tone, and breath, was born from listening to the natural world. The forest does not judge. It does not punish. When we destroy it, it does not seek revenge. It waits patiently for us to remember. Because the forest knows that one day we will return. We will return not out of guilt, but out of need. Not as conquerors, but as children finding their way. Home, somewhere in the heart of every human being, is a seed, a fragment of that same living intelligence that flows through the trees when we stand beneath a canopy of green and feel the sunlight dance through the leaves. Something ancient awakens inside us. We remember that intelligence is not the property of humans alone. We remember that every life form, from fungus to firefly, carries a piece of the Earth's consciousness. We remember that the same carbon that built the first forests still flows in our veins, and we remember that the forest has never stopped speaking. We simply stop listening when, this moment, right now, the forest breathes. It exhales oxygen for us to live. It inhales the carbon we release, a perfect circle of giving and receiving, a rhythm older than time. Oh, if you ever find yourself lost, go to the trees, sit beneath their shade, listen to the silence. That silence is not empty. It's full of messages waiting to be heard, because the forest remembers us, it always has, and if we remember it, truly remember, perhaps the story of this planet will not end in silence, but in harmony.